Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with a video on chess computers making mistakes. We all know that chess computers, chess engines have become so strong that the contest of human versus machine is no longer an interesting battle in chess. World champion Magnus Carlsen would lose in a match against the strongest engines without any chance. But computers do make mistakes, and that is what this video is about. Something strange happened to me a few nights ago when I was playing a few bullet games on Lichess. I always check the game afterwards with the engine to see which tactical shots my opponent and I have missed. And in one of these games we had the position that you see here on the board, a rook endgame with 2 extra pawns for white. White is winning, and in the game I had played d5 to d6. Passed pawns must be pushed. And during the game I was convinced that that was a good move, and much to my dismay I noticed in the analysis afterwards that Stockfish said that instead of d6 I should have played rook d3, that was the best move. With an evaluation of plus 2.6 for white. Then I was surprised to see that after the move I had played in the game, which was d5, d6, the evaluation of the engine was plus 4.2. While rook d3 was 2.6 only half a move earlier. Let me show you the screenshots. Here we have the screenshot from Lichess with the engine pointing out that rook d3 is the best move, and you can see at the bottom it has an evaluation of plus 2.6. But then I put d5, d6 on the board anyway, and suddenly the evaluation jumps from 2.6 to 4.2. So the engine changes its mind. It says that d6 is the better move after all, while half a move earlier it said that rook d3 was the best move. What happened here? Did the computer make a mistake? I found this baffling. The engine gives rook d3 as the best move, but when you play another one it says that was indeed a better move. How is this possible? I asked my chess friends in our WhatsApp group, and one of them pointed out that after d5, d6 and then rook a3 check, the king has to move to the second rank to either e2 or g2. And then he said that the pawn on e4 may become a little problem for white. Another friend of mine, international master Dharma Cham, pointed out that it doesn't really matter. White is winning after both moves, and it doesn't really matter if the evaluation is plus 2 or plus 4. My personal view is that the engine maybe suggested rook d3 because the algorithm doesn't like the king to move backwards in rook endgames. After d6 and rook a3 check, the king has to go back to the second rank. Anyway, let me show you the winning variation that international master Dharma Cham gave after d6 and then rook a3 check. He said the king has to go to e2, rook a8, because otherwise that pawn will go on to queen, f3, rook d8 to block the pawn, king e3, and then Dharma said rook takes d6, what else? To quote George Clooney, he said rook takes, king d4, king e6, and now the very nice move e4, e5. Yes, that is a master move. That pawn has to be taken, and then king e4. And that is it, said my friend, and it is indeed. White wins both black pawns because of zugzwang. Materials equal, but white is totally winning. Let me show you king f6 for example, then king d5, and the king can no longer keep the e-pawn protected. King g6, there goes the pawn, and the other one gets lost as well because of zugzwang. King g7, king f5, king h6, king f6, and again black has to let the pawn go. King h7, king takes g5, and this is a simple winning king and pawn endgame. Now let's move to another example. This is a very famous one from the World Championship 2004. The match between world champion Vladimir Kramnik against the challenger Peter Leko. I made a video on this before. It is video number 91 on the Chess to Impress channel. I'll put a link up here and you can see a detailed analysis of what happened here. Kramnik is white, Leko is black. It is the 7th of October 2004 and this is game 8 of the match. The score is 3.5, 3.5. And in this position, Kramnik has played a2, a4 on the 21st move. The opening was the Marshall Gambit from the Ruy Lopez, and in that opening black sacrifices a pawn and has good compensation for it. In this position Leko played the queen back from h5 to g6. And let's see what world champion Kramnik thought of this position. In New in Chess magazine, the 8th edition of 2004, Kramnik says, "It was clearly a hole in my preparation, but it was a very strange hole. We analyzed this whole line and then some hours before the game we found this idea with 21 queen g6. We briefly checked 22 knight e4. Okay, white is slightly better, but black can hold. Then somehow we got the idea of 22 a takes b5, but there was very little time to check it." Leko was clearly under pressure, said Kramnik, clearly suffering, and while he was taking all this time and thinking about 21 queen g6, I made this decision. I was in a rest room and decided to play fast, not to give him time to think, to put further psychological pressure on him by responding immediately. 2 minutes before he made his move, I decided that if he played 21 queen g6, I would play 22 a takes b5 immediately and just see what would happen. Very interesting to get these views from the horse's mouth, from the world champion. So what did he say? After queen g6 he wanted to play a takes b5 immediately, and that's what he did. He also mentioned that they had looked at knight e4 and then the game would finish in a draw most likely after knight takes, f takes, bishop takes g5 and b takes a4. That position is about equal. But Kramnik said he would go for a takes b5 and that's what he played immediately. Leko played bishop d3, attacking the queen, queen f2 and rook e2, attacking the queen again, infiltrating in white's position. And here Kramnik's team had prepared a queen sacrifice. Kramnik took on e2, bishop takes and b takes a6, and that is a very dangerous pawn. And here Peter Leko played queen d3, and let's see what Kramnik's second had to say about this position. From the book From London to Elista by Bareyev and Levitov, Bareyev, Kramnik's second, comments on 25 queen d3. He said, "A very powerful computer will say that this is won for black within 90 seconds to 2 minutes. That of course was in 2004. Nowadays I'm sure the engines will see it much quicker. The fact is, it won't tell you this within 10 to 15 seconds, and during analysis you rarely give it more than that. Everything happened in a situation where there was not enough time and there were a lot of positions to check. So it turns out the position was won for black after queen d3, but Kramnik's team did not know that beforehand." What happened after the game? Bareyev said, "We were blamed by Kramnik." The interviewer said, "Did he shout at you?" Justifiably. "Did he call you?" Well, I cannot copy what it said in the book. "Yes." "He said exactly that?" "Well, he put it slightly differently," said Bareyev. But it was clear that Kramnik was very unhappy with the work that his team had done for this game. Because it turned out that indeed after queen d3 black is winning. What about this move a6, a7? Is that not white's trump card? Yes it is, but it doesn't work. Let me show you the variation. Queen e3 check, king g2, bishop takes f3 check. You have to take it. Queen e2 check, it leads to checkmate, king g1, there comes the knight. Black is attacking the white king with 3 pieces. You can promote with check, but after king g7 there is no way to defend against a checkmate. Let me show you. Let's just take that pawn for example. It doesn't really matter. The white king will be checkmated. Queen f2 check, king h1, queen f1 check, knight g1, and this is checkmate. So after queen d3 on the 25th move you cannot play a6, a7. Kramnik thought for the first time in the game for a long time, he saw that a7 doesn't work and he played king f2 instead, trying to save the game. But Leko played very strongly. Bishop takes f3. If you now play a7, the checkmate is even quicker. You can put the video on pause and look for yourself. It's made in 2 moves. Queen e2 check, king g1 and checkmate. So after bishop takes f3, you have to take the bishop, and then knight e4 check. It's clear that white is not going to survive this attack with 3 pieces. The king is too exposed. King e1 was played by Kramnik, and now knight takes c3, very nice move. There's a checkmate threat on e2, so you have to take the knight, and then there is queen takes c3 check, and that is a fork, winning the rook in the corner and controlling the a pawn. King f2, Leko took on a1, a7, you can take that pawn, but why not save this pawn? Leko played h6, total control, he knew he was winning. And after h4 and g4, Vladimir Kramnik resigned, and Peter Leko had taken the lead in the match by 4.5 against 3.5. So in this game the computer got it wrong and only rectified its mistake after 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Too long for Kramnik's team to spot this. Leko refuted the line over the board, which is very impressive, and took the lead in the match. Kramnik had lost a game in which he hadn't made any move by himself. He followed his team's preparation only to find himself in a lost position at the end of it. So now we have seen one position where the computer did not get it wrong, but it was strange that it changed its mind on the strongest move only half a move later, and we have seen an example where the computer did get it wrong back in 2004, but rectified its mistake. Let's now look at the final example where the computer, also in 2021, gets it completely wrong. This is a chess composition, so not from a real game, and I found this composition on the chessmood.com blog in an article by Nicolo Passini and Grandmaster Avetik Grigorian. It's a composition by Valery Petrovich Vlasenko, a composer from Ukraine, who was born on October 21st, 1939 in the village of Cheremushnaya in the Kharkiv region in Ukraine, and he currently lives in the township of Slobozansky, also in the Kharkiv region. In 1966 he graduated from the Physics and Mathematics department of Kharkiv State University, and he became a Master of Sports of the USSR in chess composition in 1970. Those were the days for chess in the USSR. I presume Vlasenko received an allowance from the government, so he could spend all his time on composing chess problems and chess studies, and did not have to look for a real job to put food on the table. And these are a few pictures I found on the internet of Valery Petrovich Vlasenko. It's white to play and win. Now let's look at the position. It is an endgame of bishop versus knight. Black has 4 pawns and white only has 3. But this one looks very dangerous. It is only 1 square away from the promotion square. And the king on a8 does not make a great impression. It is far removed from the action. The first move you see here is bishop h6. That makes a lot of sense, supporting the f-pawn. And this will win the game for white. He'll be a piece up very soon. Is it that simple? No, it is not. Because after king b8, we can indeed promote the pawn, and black has to give the knight for the new queen. Bishop takes f8 and king a8. And that is a very important move. The king has to go to a8 and not to c8. Even though the engine claims white is totally winning here with his extra piece, the position is a draw. The position is a fortress, and that's the last part of chess that engines have not figured out yet. As long as the black king keeps shuffling between a8 and b8, white cannot make progress. What is crucial here is that the bishop is of the dark squares. With a light squared bishop, this position would be winning for white, but not with a dark squared bishop. White will never be able to control the a8 square, which will always be a safe square for the black king. Either the king is on a8 or it can move to a8, and white can move around his king and bishop till the cows come home. He can win the black f-pawns, but black will keep shuffling his king between a8 and b8, and the game is a draw, even though the engine keeps saying that white is totally winning. So in this example, the chess engine gets it wrong, completely wrong, because the engines don't understand the concept of a fortress. This game is a draw. Let's go back, because it is white to play and win, so bishop h6 does not work. Let's look at the solution. Bishop f4 is the first move. Well, that's not the first move I thought of, and I'm sure it was not the first move you thought of either. It is clear that you cannot take that bishop, because then f8 queen or rook is checkmate. That is easy. But we are not forced to take the bishop. One thing the bishop does is that it cuts off the black king, which is really stuck on a8, and black only has his knight to play with. That's an important point. Knight f8 wins easily for white. The white king will clean up the f-pawns and white will be able to put black in zugzwang, so that the f-pawn, the white f-pawn, can promote without being captured. As said, black has only the knight to play with. Let's look at one example how white can win here. King f2, knight e6, king g3, knight f8. Let's get that king up the board and clean up those f-pawns. There's nothing that black can do against that. It has to keep an eye on the f8 square. And in this position, white can play bishop d6. There's several ways to win, but this is a nice one. Knight d7, king g5, the knight has to go back, and then you can take the knight with the bishop, because the king is no longer still mated on a8. The bishop is no longer controlling that b8 square. And then we have a quick checkmate. The pawn promotes to queen, and checkmate in a few moves. So that is an example of how white wins after knight f8. It is not very difficult. White has to be careful for stalemate, but he can quite easily avoid that. Back to the position after the first move from white, bishop f4. We've seen that taking the bishop doesn't work, going back to f8 does not work either, but there is knight d8, and that is a very surprising move, but it's black's best defense. Quite an amazing move, knight d8. It doesn't work, but black is going to put up stiff resistance. It's clear that promoting to a queen or to a rook is stalemate. And that's one point of knight d8. The knight cannot play and the king cannot play. None of the pawns can play, and this game is stalemate and black has got his draw. What about f8 bishop? Promoting to a bishop, it's not stalemate. And now white is a piece up. But if we promote to bishop, it will be a dark squared one, and we will end up with the same problem as in our first variation, but this time with two useless bishops. We'll never be able to chase the black king out of his fortress. Black will keep shuffling between a8 and b8. So that leaves this move, f8, promotion to knight, and that is the solution. Now white is indeed a piece up. There is no stalemate, and we don't have that useless dark squared bishop, two of them. But black is not finished yet. He can play knight e6. He continues the fight. He wants to exchange the knights, then he will get his draw again. If he achieves that, he will have his fortress. Don't take the knight. Knight takes e6 is stalemate again, so we have to do something differently, and the move is knight g6. And now black should not take on f4, because after knight takes f4, the position is not a fortress anymore. White can win the black f-pawns, and then the knight can sacrifice itself for the b7 or c6 pawn, reaching a winning king and pawn endgame. And that's why black should try to exchange the knights and not the bishop. So after knight g6, black should not take on f4, but should try to exchange the knights, then he will get his draw. So knight f8 is the move here. And now we have to be careful. Knight e7 or knight h8 is a blunder because of knight g6. Attacking both the bishop and the knight, succeeding in the mission of exchanging white's knight. White will have to take the knight and then it's stalemate again. A move like knight f7, knight takes f4 is more of a losing attempt than a winning attempt, because now black is 2 pawns up. So we still have to be careful. After knight f8, we should not go to e7 or h8. We have to go to h4. That's the only winning move. This is a very rich and complicated composition. Knight g6. Black keeps following white's knight, trying to exchange it to get his draw. Knight g2, knight h4. The knights keep dancing. Knight e3, knight g2, and we can still not take that knight. This is stalemate again. But after knight g2, white has a wonderful move. What a composition this is. He plays knight e3 to d5. White's knight, tired of being chased around the board, makes an amazing move. What is the point of knight d5? If you keep chasing the knight with knight e3, then white takes with the bishop. And that is avoiding the stalemate, because now black has a move. He can go to b8 and white is easily winning. So you cannot keep chasing the knight after knight d5. You'll have to take it. C takes d5. But then white can take on g2. And this position is no longer a fortress, because after capturing the d5, f5 and f6 pawns, white will win with a breakthrough c5, c6. And now we're almost there. Let's look at one example how white can win this. Black only has one move, d4, king g3. Black only has one move, d3. The king is going to clean up the f-pawns. Black has to play d2. That pawn gets taken and there is no stalemate. For example, king b8, king h5, king c8. The king is going to clean up the pawns. King takes f6, f4. That pawn is also taken. King c6 and bishop e3, protecting the c-pawn. And white will win very soon with the c5, c6 push. This is quite elementary and you can figure this out for yourself. It's not very difficult. If you want to see how white wins, you can check out the comment section, because my faithful viewer William Squires tends to post analysis of the critical positions in the comment section. He might do so again and then you can see it there. What a composition from Valery Vlasenko. And the question that remains is, how long will it take for engines to be able to recognize fortresses? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.